Dust is in my eyes, my blood is on the ground. Quiet little chuckle and the shuffling of the boots of the coward that shot me down. He turns toward the sunrise and I hear him softly say, I guess you've met your macho man, as the colors fade to gray.
Howdy, partners. Dust and Blood is a rabble-rousing, rootin'-tootin', bronco-bustin' podcast not suitable for the ears of young'uns. Take a gander at the content warnings and listen with care.
Welcome to Dust and Blood, a narrative play podcast set in the wild, weird fantasy West. I'm Blake, your GM, and our players are Keith Curtis as Jasper Graves, Corinne Hill as Myra Sting, Zach Parker as Moz Copernicus Pryor, and Gail Parker as Bonesaw. Last time, the rowdy gang attended dinner with the Galloways. The house held secrets galore, hidden elevators, familial intrigue, and waterboarded prisoners. If they can put a stop to the spate of killings committed by mysterious undead, Augur will give them a tracking gem tied to Jesse Blackburn. You wake up bright and early. It's a new day. It's actually much colder today, and there's actually a fine layer of snow falling.
Ooh, Myra's not happy.
Yeah, it is definitely chilly. It's hanging out right at the 32, 33 mark, just enough for a light snow. By the time you guys get up and go down, a fine layer has formed.
Bonesaw's warming his hands over his little Bunsen burner fire at the desk while he's doing his morning potions. Oh, it's a bit brisk, isn't it?
Brisk is a very great way of putting it. Brisk does not even begin to comprehend how cold it is in this stupid room. Is there a furnace in here? She's very bitter. She has blankets over her head. She has not left the bed. Her tail is sticking out, and there's a little sock kind of dangling over her tail.
Just the tip just gets really, really chilly.
Just the tip part.
What happened to that trinket I lent you there, Myra?
It's not warm enough. And she's holding it, and she's like trying to wrap herself around it into a ball. So she's probably fine. She's just a bit of a wimp.
You're just belly aching.
Well, if we go anywhere by horse, you might want to consider seeing if Bonesaw will let you ride the clanker.
Oh, Bonesaw, I will never ask you of anything else in your entire life. Please.
You don't even have to ask. You can always snuggle with Otto anytime you please.
Oh, bless you.
In fact, I've been looking. He flips through the manual, which is all in German, and you can see he's got the dictionary kind of spread on the table beside him, and he's like, I've been looking through and trying to figure out a little bit of what it can do. You know, after seeing Audgar's wheelchair and all, I was like, oh, you know, mine probably has a bunch of hidden goodies as well.
Do you speak German?
However, you should not bring the horse into the hotel room. I hear they frown on that.
Oh, posh, we're paying customers.
If I remember correctly, it was you who brought Smokey into the last hotel we stayed at.
That's what I'm saying. I speak with the voice of experience.
Blake, can I roll linguistics to decipher more of the manual?
Yes, you can. Unfortunately, a 13 is not quite enough to get more than... You're able to figure out some of the names of things that you can do.
Okay.
You find Feuersprung, which translates as fire jump.
That sounds very exciting.
Detonation, which does not take any translation. It's a direct one-to-one.
All right.
Feueratem, which is fire breath.
What? Otto has fire breath. Look at this. I don't know how to activate it exactly, but I'm sure if I press enough buttons.
And finally, Feuerlauf, which is fire run.
lot of fire going on with this horse.
Your toy just got interesting, Bones.
Yeah, so that's all the stuff you can make out. You cannot figure out beyond that what you need to press, what you need to do to make it work. And I'll remind you that detonation is one of those. So random experimentation might not be the best idea.
Okay, are you telling me that the detonation button is not the most obvious button? Because
Yes, I am. You have met Schweitzer. You know that she would have a sequence for it.
Okay, a sequence then. Well, that's less likely to press. I might risk experimentation. We'll see.
Okay.
So, do we want to go to the sheriff first? Sort of get a lay of the land?
Yeah.
Suppose that's a good start.
Yeah, I think so. Now, are we going to take our horses with us wherever we go about today? Because I'm contemplating putting Smokey back in her stone. It's might chilly out there.
If you want to put Smokey back, I'll just take the wagon. That way Myra can be on Otto, and anyone can ride who wants.
Well, as long as we can find parking. I hear it's hard to find downtown.
God damn it.
Not with a mechanical horse that has fire breath, let me assure you.
They'll put a boot on it.
Well, there is that. I think that there's probably a right-of-way involved there. must be yielded.
You all make your way downtown to the sheriff's office, where you know the next step of your investigation is. The streets themselves are eerily quiet. With the chill in the air has come a bit of a quietness. It seems that people aren't out unless they have to be. For a Friday, you would kind of expect this entire area to be hustling and bustling, but there really isn't. Especially not in the financial district. It looks like all of the rich bankers in the area have said, fuck this, we're staying inside.
You know, Jasper, I really liked what you said to Odger Galloway about us not being like hired hitmen. We haven't really talked formally about us as a group, but, you know, nice to have some groundwork.
Did I say that?
Yes, when he was implying
I'm sorry. I'm having a mite bit of trouble remembering yesterday too clearly.
Oh, the drink, that's right.
Yeah, I believe that there was some sort of imbibement going on, and all New England is gone from his voice.
Well, maybe it was a zombie moment, but
I do seem to recall that coming up in conversation, but yeah, it sounds like me. I'll own to it. So you discussing we should formalize some codes of conduct? That does not sound like Bonesaw. That you, Ash?
we should have a name. We should be a group. Do you want to stay together? I mean, we've been together for a bit. I don't want to be too forward. I don't want anyone to run off. It's silly. Never mind. It was a silly idea.
No,
we don't
I think it's a darn good idea. It gives us a bit of a cachet, and might help us land jobs and build up a decent reputation.
Yes, exactly. You see, all good, very good points. Excellent thinking there, Jasper.
So you got any suggestions? Because the ones I come up with are all along the lines of total bastards, lying drifters,
Charlatans.
Charlatans. That's a good one.
You know, I love charlatans, but I don't know about that for business.
No, I don't think it sends off the right aura that we want to project.
How about Moz's posse?
See, I was thinking of something more along the lines of like Bonesaw's group or something. You know,
Bonesaw's group.
Nah, it doesn't have the same ring to it.
Oh, we could be the medicine men.
How about we work on that, Bones?
Yeah, we'll workshop
let's
it around
workshop.
around a nice fire at some point. Make sure that Myra is nice and comfy and really awake. How you doing there?
She doesn't respond. She's entered a stasis mode where She's like kind of hibernating. I don't know if you've ever seen iguanas fall out of trees in Florida when it gets too cold, but she's about like that. She's wrapped around Otto, but she seems to be elsewhere at the moment. Her eyes are kind of glazed over, and she kind of goes, "Huh? What?"
Oh, we'll bring it up later on. You enjoy your torpor there.
Okay.
Myra, make a fortitude save for me. You'll get a +3 from being around Otto.
Ooh.
10.
All right, you're going to take 1d6 points of non-lethal damage.
Ah, shit.
That's max.
She is a major wimp. She does not do cold, man. She finds a deep, dark hole in the warm center of the earth and she doesn't move. Is what she does in the winter.
Myra, you're not looking so great. Give me a second. He's gonna mix up an elixir and cast Endure Elements on Myra. A creature protected by Endure Elements suffers no harm from being in a hot or cold environment.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, so moving forward, you're not going to have to make any of the checks. Honestly, this is probably the most comfortable you've been all winter.
She straightens up and she kind of seems like she comes out of a daze and she goes, I don't know what that was, but I'll pay you for that service all winter. I'm good for that money.
Oh, you know, family doesn't have to pay.
I like you very much today, Bonesaw. You're my favorite person today.
Oh, excuse me, I'm going to go with the cart for a moment.
I kind of heard something while I was in a daze about a name.
For our family. Bonesaw goes in the cart.
Yeah, Bonesaw was thinking that we might be able to build up a better reputation, maybe get better jobs and such like that, if we have ourselves a nom de voyage, some sort of a group name that we can present ourselves as. You know, maybe we can make up some business cards.
We could probably find someone to do that for us here.
Yeah, but we need a name. We need a name that will, I don't know, that'll inspire folks or scare folks, maybe.
I got it. Moz's Renegades.
Yeah, I'm sensing a continuing theme there from you, Moz.
Oh, all right. Renegades.
Renegade Riders.
Ooh. That's pretty cool.
It's about that time, right as you say Renegade Riders, that you find yourselves at the main crossroads. You see the courthouse across the way, the now empty gallows sitting there quietly, and the large sign that says Sheriff outside sitting off to your left. The front porch is swept off, and there's a lantern hanging in the window. It's a fairly well-built building, 2 stories. The front is made of wood, but you see the backside is made of adobe brick with some really hefty bars over some of the windows. Clearly this is part jail, part sheriff's office.
All right, quick check before we go in, because it's been at least 12 hours since I think we last checked. Is anybody wanted for anything?
My devilishly handsome looks.
Just don't want any surprises. Say, oh yeah, went out last night and, something terrible happened.
Oh, no.
I got wanted posters. All right, just checking.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I'm clear.
Is there a bounty board that we can see?
Yeah, there is a bounty board hanging on the outside. It's all names that you've seen before.
Short round gang.
Just checking to see if there's a Jesse Blackburn on that there board.
Ooh.
There is a Jesse Blackburn.
Because if there's a bounty on him, we can do some double dipping.
Just gonna tear that poster off, roll it up, stick it in the pocket.
You do see one for the Demon Surgeon.
Wanted for the known murders of 3 folk, suspected of at least 6 other murders. Proof of identity must be provided for reward to be given. Looks like they crossed out the or alive.
Yeah, the or alive has been painted across with some what appears to be red paint. The image that has been drawn there appears to be fairly slim features in the face, some tattoos underneath the eyes and on the chin, appearing to be some sort of ritualistic diamonds underneath, heavy eyeliner, and a very deep hood covering most of the face. From the description, there's no mention of male or female given, and the picture itself looks very androgynous.
Colleague of yours, Bonesaw?
Hardly.
All right, so we've got undead killers, the demon surgeon, and the Coffinmaker. This is a rough town.
I'm a little mixed up. There's a lot of murder going on in this town, but surely Sheriff Roy Savage can give us the lay of the land? Do we want to go in?
Sure.
I think so. That is a name ominous with portent, by the way.
If we're trying to connect dots, maybe the demon surgeon is the Coffinmaker. If this is a surgeon and they're killing people, maybe that's where they're getting their parts.
Oh, could be related.
Moz, you said the Coffinmaker was more of a crime boss, though?
Yes, a sort of
yeah, that's
dark
true.
market, but selling limbs, apparently, for reattachment. So even if they're not the same person, could be they're a supplier.
Could be, but that's one more thing to put on our plate. We're getting paid for the undead murder, so let's sashay in and have a palaver with Sheriff Savage.
All right.
Oh, dang, sounds like he should be in a Revenant Riders book. Revenant Rangers.
You all step inside. The room is very well appointed, fairly clean. You see 2 or 3 desks sitting out front. One that appears to be a check-in desk for people coming to visit, a couple for potential deputies. All are empty, however, save for one near the back where you see a tiefling, the same tiefling that you saw yesterday at the hanging. Long curled horns, red skin, still wearing that orange and blue gingham shirt. He has that salt and pepper hair, and he's sitting in the chair, leaning back, snoring. He is fully asleep. His legs are up on the desk. There's a shotgun that he was probably in the middle of cleaning when he decided to close his eyes for a minute. A big old Bowie knife just stuck into the desk, and he's just...
How should we do this? There's so many fun ways to wake someone up.
Hold
There's
on now.
many fun ways, but a few of those can get you in that cell there, Bones, so be careful.
Or a big giant Bowie knife.
He doesn't happen to have a weapon in a hand or anything like that either, does he?
He's not holding any weapons on him, just the disassembled shotgun that he was cleaning and the Bowie knife. You do see that he has a shining gun at his side. One that you've never really seen before. Like, it is fancy.
He ain't wearing no star, though, is he?
He is wearing a star.
Oh.
I guess he's not wearing it on his vest, but you see on an overcoat hanging on a rack behind him, you see it has a star on it.
All right, who wants to do the honors?
Can I drink my elixir of detect thoughts?
Okay.
Shouldn't have asked.
Can I use chill touch to make one finger really cold and then like shove it down the back of his neck?
I'm just going to have a seat.
Yeah, you can do that.
I think Moz is gonna leave the room. He doesn't want to be associated with it. They'll step outside the door. That's my cue.
Dang, I wish I'd thought of that.
Oh, man. Fucking hell. So you're doing detect thoughts.
Yeah. Bonesaw wants the full transition from sleeping thoughts to surprised waking thoughts.
Okay.
And then he figures it'll be handy for when we're pumping him for information. He's just prepared like that.
Prepared is not the word I would use for this situation.
Myra kind of puts her hand out and goes, maybe Maybe I don't know. Maybe don't. I hate to spoil your fun, and I think the fact that he's sleeping on the job in a town where apparently there's a lot of murders is kind of rubs me the wrong way. But maybe just like a tap.
I'm gonna let out a huge sneeze right at this moment.
As Jasper sneezes,
Oh, pardon.
Roy, and pulls out his gun that's at his side.
Bonesaw's definitely hovering over him, prepared to do the finger thing.
What's your AC right now?
Oh no.
My AC right now is 17.
As you are standing there, he just and he grabs his gun, holds the trigger down, and just fan fires 4 shots. Directly just boom, 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 boom. I need you to please take 35 points of damage.
Holy crap!
Oh my god. You didn't even get to touch him with the cold.
Well, now I feel bad.
There are conditions which will force me to rage.
And getting shot ain't one of them?
Forced on a crit or failed fortitude save.
None of them are crits. You realize the only reason you didn't get hit with 2 more is 2 bullets were missing, because he kept fan firing for a good 6 seconds.
Ah! God, damn it! You can't
Whoa,
take
whoa,
it,
whoa, whoa,
fucking
whoa, whoa.
Frank!
What the devil are you doing in here?
Not
I'm trying to have a friendly conversation.
is
As you approached him and were reading his mind as he was dreaming, you can tell that he was dreaming of this beautiful, expansive hotel room, massive plush cushions. He was drinking a fine whiskey, smoking a big cigar, and as he got woken up by a sudden sneeze, his thoughts shifted. You saw this image of the Grim Reaper, actually, standing over him, giant lambent eyes staring at him, and that seems to be the thing that he started shooting at. You just happened to fit the exact description of the thing that he was facing.
Bonesaw picks a bullet out of his chest and clinks it on the floor and says, "That wasn't very professional of you, I've got to say."
do you just randomly fan fire at people that just walk into your office?
When they're standing over me and look like they're half dead, I do.
Well, you're sleeping on the job. I'm sorry, sir, but if we were gonna wake you peacefully, good God, now no one should ever wake you lest you fucking fire a bunch of holes in them.
Hell's bells.
That's pretty racist.
Moz is gonna take this opportunity to burst through the front door. I heard gunfire!
We're good. We're fine. We're fine.
Who got shot?
No, well, Bonesaw, but he...
But I deserved it, probably.
No,
I don't think that is fair
that
at
was
all.
way too much.
Sheriff, let's start over again here. We're willing to overlook the accidental near homicide of our partner here for attempting to wake you out of, I'm sure, what is a well-deserved rest. So, let's start over again. My name is Jasper Graves, and I represent this here motley group of bound for glory macho cowboys. We're looking to give you a hand, actually. So, can we start over again?
He scratches at his 5 o'clock shadow and says, "Yeah, sure. Here." And he opens his desk drawer, pulls out a bottle, and slams it into your hand, Bonesaw.
Do I, as a healing person, recognize it as a cure potion?
It is a cure potion.
Are you trying to kill me twice over?
What? What? I gave you a fucking potion. What?
A number of us here, sir, are undead Americans.
Oh, great. Just fucking great.
No, it's fine. I'll find a use for it. Bonesaw pockets it and then drinks his own elixir.
bleeding in a corner.
What level is it so I can write it down?
I think it was a cure moderate wounds. Yeah, cure moderate wounds.
Thank you.
Kind of telling that he keeps that there in his desk drawer. Kind of telling that there ain't nobody else in the office, too.
As he settles down, calms himself slightly, says, "All right, yeah, come, sit down. God's my head."
Do I detect the odor of alcohol about him?
Yeah, it's very faint, but you definitely do detect that he was probably drinking last night.
Shameful.
And he says, What do you all want? What's going on?" He starts reloading his gun as he does this.
I'm going to pointedly keep an eye on that gun, and I think I'm going to shift my chair a couple of inches further away.
We're here investigating the undead incidences, as well as a separate instance of a possible Revenant.
Edgar Galloway sent us, the guy who pays you. He said to be helpful.
Yeah, we're basically a private security firm.
Oh man, how long does your detect thoughts last?
1 minute per level. 10 minutes.
As you say this, you get a more fucking journalists. What do they want? And then you mention the Revenant, say, "Oh great, now we've got a couple of crazies." And then you say, "Working for Odger, the person who pays your check," and he's like, "God damn it, Odger, why do you have to do this to me?" Just all of these thoughts in quick succession. Before he says, right. Well, I mean, what do you want to know? You want to know how I don't have the manpower around to actually take care of this?
We're going to take care of it. We need your information. Do you have any files? What can you tell us? How many incidents? Where are they? Who are the victims? Are there any connections? Information! Snap.
Shut up.
Easy now, he's recovering. Given Moz's experience both with drunks and being drunk, he knows that is a torrent of questions. Slowly now, Bones.
Bonesaw, you get a ping across the mind reading of swear if this guy says another fucking thing, I'm throwing him in the cell.
I'll throw you in the cell!
Oh no.
Bonesaw, when you say this, he stands up, and his hand, which he had put away the gun, but it starts to go towards it, says, "You read my mind there, mister."
Not that there's much to read. You're kind of slow this morning.
Sir, we're reading your face. You might not realize this, but your body English is extremely readable. You just glanced back at them, their cells, glanced at Bonesaw, and made a face that I pretty much interpreted as a connection between the two.
Make a diplomacy or bluff check.
Yeah, I can do that. Let's see, diplomacy is a 2, bluff is a 1. Let's go with diplomacy. 10.
He looks at all of you, grabs Bonesaw by the front of the jacket and says, "Buddy, you're under arrest for disturbing the peace. Come on." And he starts to push Bonesaw towards the cell.
Bonesaw goes easily. He's like, "Fine, I'll listen from here, but you better answer. We're going to tell Odger."
He opens the cell, shoves Bonesaw in, and slams the door and says, "That's one thing I don't have to worry about now," and walks away.
Hey.
Comes back to all of you.
Sir, listen, I get that you're probably not feeling the greatest and you're stressed about everything going on, but that's one hell of a way to treat someone that you just shot.
Would you rather I shot him again? I can do that.
No, we just want to talk.
I would advise against it.
Fine. I mean, I don't know why Ogder's sending you to me. I already told him all the shit that's going down. And he goes into his desk and pulls out a file and tosses it. It says, "Been 7 events that we've heard of so far. First one happened a couple of weeks ago. Lee Marin, she's the one who owns the Smoking Cobra, came to me telling me that she was assaulted by an undead outside her office as she was locking up for the evening. Frankly, I didn't believe her, considering there was no body that was found, and she was in her usual state, shall we say.
What do you mean by that?
She has a unique collection of herbs and spices that she don't live on the same plane of reality as the rest of us, with all the stuff she puts in her body, shall we say.
Interesting.
A couple of days later, slightly more concerning, there was an attack on Panhana. He was the Ute representative for the Native Lands Alliance up over on Boot Hill. Killed late in the night 1 week ago. All we found was a rapidly decomposing zombie. Mary here, one of the workers down at the saddle sore, saw one a couple of days later. The zombie was quickly dismissed. Mary was hurt, but not badly enough to warrant much.
When you say dismissed, could you elaborate on that?
Got beaten up, beaten away.
Okay, driven off is what you're getting at there then.
Yeah.
Did it fall to pieces, or did it actually leave from the cell?
Fell to pieces. Shut up! Susanna, who owns the place, she's quite skilled in making sure folk that mess with her girls don't live long to tell about it. At the Jesuit College of Albuquerque, up in the north, a group of students was attacked middle of the day, their way to classes. Only description I could get for that one looked like, and he checks his notes, Cornelius Tomes, who was a classmate of theirs. Zombie collapsed before anyone was seriously injured and rapidly decomposed.
Quick question on what we've heard so far. A couple of zombies apparently have rapidly decomposed. That is not normal?
Correct.
Okay.
That is, in fact, very strange.
Yeah, for a non-us type of zombie.
Yeah, this is weird.
Can Moz do some sort of arcana check to essentially determine if he knows the type of magic or spell that is being used? Mostly trying to determine if it required like line of sight or concentration to focus on.
You can do Arcana or Religion. You won't get quite as much with Arcana.
11.
Okay. Yeah, you get the sense that it's probably doesn't require line of sight or concentration. The rapid decomposition is weird. Like, that in particular strikes you as not normal and feels, from your experience, just like in life and in general, that feels like somebody covering their tracks.
Yeah.
A man named Enos Tama was slain about 4 days ago after coming out of a performance of the Peep Show at the Grand Nickelodeon Theater. And then 2 nights ago, Shen Yun of the Blue Scales Bank reported a group of 3 zombies attempted to break into the front door of the bank, but they were quickly detained. However, they attacked the people who detained them with extreme ferocity, nearly injuring 2 clients coming out before they died and rapidly decomposed. And then just last night, got a report up in Arroyo. A zombie attacked a woman in her home. Didn't kill her, fortunately, but tried to stab her. Posse couldn't find one. That's the only one that seems to break the pattern, though. It seemed that the zombie was actually talking and was ranting and raving about something and didn't appear to do the whole disintegration thing.
Yeah, that sounds like a red herring to me.
Yeah, it's a isolated incident.
You know, I bet that zombie had a really good reason for whatever they were doing.
Bounce off. She bangs the bars.
Was any of these here decomposed zombies that were recovered, was any of them carrying any kind of identification or have any unusual markings or tokens on them that might link them or identify who they used to be?
That's the weird part. Weren't just the bodies that decomposed, it was everything that they were wearing. Nothing was left. And that one that the student said looked like Cornelius, we tried to get in contact with Cornelius, but it seems that he'd been out sick for the past couple of days, and no one's seen hide nor hair of him.
And this here decomposition, was this into into dust or rot? And was there anything left that could be recovered from what remained afterwards?
Not unless you had a weird fascination with offal.
Awful.
Not much was left. It was just a pile of rotted meat and leather and,
Interesting.
the usual stuff that comes after a zombie dies. No offense intended.
No, none taken.
Outside of the assaults and the murders, have there been any reported missing cases similar to Cornelius Stone's? People who could have possibly been the fresh meat for the zombies or necromancer of sorts?
Haven't really gotten any reports of that. I haven't really looked into that. I could see what I could find out.
What about a cemetery? You got one in Albuquerque?
Of course. Need a cemetery with a town this big. Which brings us to the obvious two suspects. And it's like I told Odger. I told him this fucking month ago.
Asshole.
Told him what's going on with it. There's two people that it probably is. It's gonna be either Leona Maxwell, the undertaker in town. She's creepy. She's the one in town whose one job is to make sure that undead ain't rising out of her cemetery. She's apparently not doing that job.
Well, with all due respect, sir, it's your job to make sure nobody in this town gets murdered, but people are getting murdered anyway, so...
Yeah.
Got a lot of lip on you for a 2-bit gunslinger, you know that?
I understand what I am.
Well, sir, we cost considerably more than 2 bits.
Well, thank you, Jasper. That means a lot. We just want to make sure that we're doing our job correctly. Now, a 2-bit gunslinger fixing your messes, that's not really a good way to go about things. So how about you give us some evidence as opposed to just kind of throwing someone under the bus or the wagon. There are no buses. The coach.
Bonesaw, you get in your head that he's saying, plus she's creepy as hell. Be good to get rid of that creep.
You're a right piece of work, you know that?
Shut up.
Creepy people have value too.
What the fuck is with you traveling with that asshole?
I'd like to stay on task if we can.
The other person that you need to look at, and the other very obvious person who has the most reason to make the Galloways look bad, it's Bailey Wright, or the bully, as you might have heard him called. Leader of the Denim Knuckles.
Hey, yeah, we have had an altercation with them. Now, you say that the Undertaker is not doing her job of keeping people underground. Have you verified that there are disturbed graves? Or is it just an assumption?
I wanted to talk to her about it. She said that she hadn't seen any undisturbed graves, but plenty of the ground was disturbed when I was up there. Not exactly going to be taking her word for it, now am I?
When you say plenty of the ground, you're talking about individual graves?
Yeah, I guess.
And did you make a note of which ones?
I mean, there was a lot of them, and the ground was kind of frozen, so I was cold. I didn't stay up there that long.
Well, maybe we'll take a little bit longer when we get there.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, with the fresh layer of snow, it'd be pretty easy to follow any footsteps if someone walked out of their grave and started harassing people.
Yeah, probably.
Also might be a good place for a bit of a stakeout.
And if you're feeling up to it, go ahead and say hi to Bailey for me. Tell him that one of these days, when I get enough of a posse, I'm going to take him in. You can find him down at the Demon's Run Saloon in 5 Points.
Myra wanted actually to ask about the Revenant thing, about the fire, details about what had gone down, if there's any more information to learn.
I think he tells you that it was a common rumor that the halfling next door, who he finally gives you a name for, Rusith Coldblossom, was supposedly having an affair with Rose Laguna, Saul's wife.
Now we got a motive.
And since Saul was killed, and Rusith nor Rose have been seen since the fire, it's assumed that Rusith is the killer.
Okay.
And when you bring up the Revenant,
Yeah.
he, full-on laughs at you. You chasing after ghost stories? Children's nightmares?
Right. Nightmares. Yeah. Pretty much. Just looking for stories.
Well, if you don't mind, Sheriff, we're gonna need our companion to interrogate or investigate these occurrences. Bonesaw has a way of communicating with people that just gets information out of them quicker than usual, so if you don't mind, I'd appreciate it if you freed our companion.
Alright. He goes over, unlocks the door.
Bonesaw is sort of nodding his thanks, and he says, "It's better this way. If I had to break out myself, I'm sure the cell would sustain some damage."
He grabs you, Bonesaw, by the scruff of your coat.
He must be reaching way up. How tall is he?
He is. He's
Okay.
5'8". He's decently tall. He says, "Now looky here. You go making trouble in my town. You and I are gonna have words. Those bullet holes in that chest of yours, we wishing that's all I did to you."
Sure. All right. Have a nice day, Sheriff.
Unfazed.
Oh, one last thing. And he takes his gun, spins it, and hits the side of your pocket that you put the health potion into. You hear a crunch.
Ah! Now that's just wasteful.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Pleasant dreams.
Pleasant nightmares, Bonesaw says under his breath as he stalks out the front.
You all are in the street. Snow continuing to fall. Still pretty lightly, but seems like it's picking up a little bit.
Boy, that guy was stupid, right?
Yeah, and grumpy.
Stupid is one word for it. Incompetent moron, perhaps. Yeah, I don't think I need any more space in my head devoted to that piece of work. We'll go back there if we need some sort of official information or something like that. But I think that was realistically, other than the information that we got, he was about as useful as a tick on a rock. I don't know. I'm running out of metaphors here.
Well, let's talk about what to do next. Do we want to stick together or split up to cover more ground? To be honest, I was planning on visiting Leona anyway, and I definitely can't talk to those Revenant neighbors. I think they'll react poorly to my presence.
Yeah, that was my first inclination too, because zombies have to be coming from somewhere, and the graveyard would seem to be the primary source of dead bodies, especially ones that would not get reported as being stolen. I mean, we could check morgues and funeral houses and things like that, but you would think that those are the sorts of things that would be reported. Bodies disappearing from a cemetery generally go unnoticed. Now, Myra, you spoke to her.
I did.
After that incident in the street, and my first impression was that she did not very much care for the sort of folk that I or Bonesaw represent. But you said that there might be something more to it?
Well, I saw a rock kind of trip you, Jasper, and I went to see if that was her fault, and she said yes, that it was. And I got a little irate, but then something almost fell on me, and she pushed me out of the way. So I think there's something going on with her that is out of her control.
I think she might have some kind of a jinx.
Oh, some kind of curse?
Something of the like. I don't think I've ever seen or heard anything of the likes before. Would Myra have heard of a curse or something like that?
Oh, that's tough. Give me a knowledge religion, knowledge arcana, or just a straight intelligence roll. If anybody else wants to as well, they can.
4, she don't know shit.
23 knowledge arcana.
Much better.
With a 23 knowledge arcana check, you don't get quite as much with arcana as you would with religion, but what you know is it definitely sounds like this is some sort of curse. Honestly, the best you can tell, it just sounds unlucky. Like she's unlucky.
Well, we've had more than our fair share of experiences with curses. Bones, don't touch anything. And on the thought of splitting up, the thought of Bones leaving my sight and starting trouble that I can't fix shakes me to my very core. I do not like that idea.
Well, do you want to come along with me? We could do groups of 2.
Actually, that was my inclination as well, to investigate in that direction. I'll tell you what, though. I don't think she took a real shine to me to begin with, and you are less obviously an undead individual than myself. So I'll tell you what, why don't you head on over and talk to her? I'm going to take a mosey on up to the cemetery. That's Boot Hill?
Boot Hill. Yeah, you actually were shown her property where she's at is next to the cemetery.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll walk with you a ways. We'll split off about the time we get to Boot Hill. I'll take a wander around and gander up there and possibly discover more than the little piece of trail dust Sheriff did.
That's very clever.
See if I can make some notes on what graves might have been disturbed, see if I can find some sort of a pattern, or indeed any evidence that any graves indeed have been disturbed. I've got some paper. I still have my stack of cigarette papers for taking notes on, and I'm just basically I'm going to do a methodical walkthrough.
Okay.
And that'll be good to have you check it out, because I'll ask her as well, and we'll see if there's any discrepancies between what she tells me and what you find.
Yeah. I'm going to cast Longstrider on myself, because I don't want anybody at a distance saying, what's that shambling going on out there in the graveyard? They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Alright, so to Leona's first. Jasper will split off to the graveyard. Maybe neighbors later, sans myself. Are there any other threads we need to chase up?
Bailey, I suppose, leader of the Denim Knuckles. It's odd because he didn't mention anything about Bailey Wright having any sort of necromantic abilities.
Or motive.
Right, just the fact that he didn't like him.
Yeah, I think that's low.
Good to keep an eye on the pieces on the board, though.
You might have an idea who's behind it.
Also, I don't think that waltzing into the leader of the Denim Knuckles HQ is a particularly wise moment for us, given our recent history.
That's fair.
We might not be starting off on the right foot there.
Oh, and also Cameron. We need to find Cameron for info about necromantic stuff in general.
Cameron?
Yeah, oh, well, I guess you never really met Cameron. While you were your, angel friend, we ran into a necromancer named Cameron.
We're not friends.
Sorry.
Just...
Your roommate?
Possessor, interloper, stealer of bodies, anything along those lines.
Head buddy.
Roommate.
If Bonesaw is giving you a withering glare, you can't tell because it's behind the goggles.
Myra probably feels it and goes, right, yeah, terrible, awful interloper. We met a necromancer who was doing a lot of good work, freeing people. And they will definitely be able to help us understand, especially why these bodies are decomposing so rapidly, and whether or not that was a result of intent or just shoddy necromantic skills.
Based in Albuquerque.
Yeah, I think that's what they told us was,
Oh, that's convenient.
I know, right? Well, and hopefully, Cameron doesn't become a list of suspects. We should probably make sure we don't mention them to the sheriff.
Right.
Definitely sounds like a good source of information, though.
All right, on to Leona's.
Point of curiosity here, since we do have a light dusting of snow on the ground, and we know how it affects snake folk. How do zombies in general? Are we susceptible? Do we tend to ignore it, or?
We, I think, are better at... Where to go? Desert Runner. We have +4 racial bonus on Constitution checks and Fortitude saves to avoid fatigue and exhaustion, as well as other ill effects from running, forced marches, starvation, thirst, and hot or cold environments.
Oh, okay.
So we are slightly better suited to these things.
Yeah, you actually, the cold just doesn't really seep in through the skin as much.
So Bermuda shorts and t-shirt is the...
Are zombies cold-blooded?
Exactly.
Are you blooded?
I feel like we're sort of, we're turgid-blooded.
Oh.
There's dead blood, but it's not, like, necessary. Kind of like goiter and eating, I feel like.
You don't have metabolism, so you don't need to keep your body temperature at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right, we're not endothermic, we're not exothermic, we're mesothermic.
Exactly.
And half our receptors are dead anyway, so,
Yeah.
like, we can't tell.
You leave the sheriff and jail area, heading east along the main road, crossing over the railroad. You pass the doctor's place where you know the neighbors were taken. There is red snow outside the front of that one.
Ooh.
Red snow?
Red snow. You see off in the distance a large sign that has an embroidered saddle on it that says Saddle Sore. You pass a very gaudy looking theater that says the Grand Nickel Odeon Theater. Everybody give me a perception check.
24.
25. I know this one more thing.
16. And Moz got a 23.
Everybody except Bonesaw. You see a homeless man sitting on the ground, shivering, wearing kind of patchy clothes, fingerless gloves, kind of huddled against a wall. And as you guys are approaching, you see a pair of men wearing long brown robes, tied at the waist with rope, hoods up, so you can't see their faces. Approach the man, hand him a blanket. And one of them hands him a little bowl that is steaming. And they chat with him for a little bit. After a minute, one of them begins leading the homeless man away. The other starts walking in the opposite direction.
Do we recognize the robes or the apparel that they're wearing?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too.
Give me a religion check. Knowledge religion.
14.
15.
I got a 19.
Bonesaw and Jasper, they appear to belong to some sort of religious order, but from what you can tell, they don't appear to have any sort of sigils or markings or anything, and in fact, there almost seems to be an obvious lack of any sort of symbology on them, which seems a bit odd for a religious group. Normally, religious groups wear their stuff out and about.
Alright, it is springing into Jasper's mind now that finding homeless people and leading them off somewhere sounds like a quick way to get untraceable bodies. Where does this occur on the map?
This is occurring just a little bit after the Nickelodeon Theater, right as you're heading up the mountain towards Boot Hill.
Alright, change of plan, folks. You go on if you want to have a palaver with the Undertaker. This is just tickling my funny bone.
All right, you know the deal if you're going off on your own. Bonesaw scoops Goiter out from under his neckerchief and says, I know it's cold. Come on. You've got to watch Jasper for me. And he plops him on you.
As you do that, Goiter, and holds the position as if he's frozen.
All right.
It's dangerous to go alone. Here, take this.
That's all right. He's less sticky than normal in this weather. He's more like taffy consistency, which is more pleasant.
All right. But I'm going to hand you my vest and a scrub brush at the end of the day.
That seems fair.
And Goiter, I need you to be as still as, well, I guess you are. All right, then. I'm going to go into full stealth and tracking mode.
Do you want a lookout to hop up on a roof and just kind of look and see in case shit goes down, or do you want to handle this on your own?
Well, let's see. Last time I handled something on my own, I just about got devoured by a pack of gnolls.
That's happened to me too.
Yeah, a lot more recently too. So yeah, that actually sounds like a good idea. I tell you what, I'm going to keep a trace on them. You hang further back, keep a trace on me.
Okay, alright.
That way we reduce our profile to our prey. And I pray that is all they are going to do.
I agree.
See, what I made there was a little pun or play on words.
Very, very clever, Jasper.
I'm feeling it.
Just in case you need it, Bonesaw will hand Jasper an elixir of invisibility.
All right, and I've learned about this now.
This is the one that lasts longer, but if you hit someone, it will stop.
Exactly so. All righty, I will keep that. I'll keep that close to hand. And Jasper is going to become a ghost.
You and Myra begin following these folk. Are you trying to do it stealthily, or...
I'm trying to do it stealthily because I don't want them to know that they're being followed, and I am tracking them. My plan is to rely upon my survival skills to give them enough of a lead that they can occasionally go around a corner without me having to hurry up, because with the fall of snow, I think that people are leaving tracks that can be followed.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I remember correctly, they split.
Right, I'm following the one who went off with the homeless person.
Fantastic. Okay, both you and Myra give me stealth checks.
19. I haven't got invisibility. I'm holding that in case it becomes necessary.
Myra only rolled a 10.
But Myra's also further back watching Jasper. Are you on the roof, too?
Yeah, I think she'll take to the roofs, that way she doesn't leave a little snake trail behind her.
Jasper, go ahead and roll a survival check for me, but it's going to be really easy.
29. Oh, sorry. 34.
Damn.
Plus 5.
34?
Barely cuts it.
Genuinely, you don't even need to keep them in line of sight.
I'm following their tracks, basically.
You've got their tracks. Like, you notice the homeless man has a bit of a hitch in his step. He probably has a wooden leg, and it creates a very obvious walking pattern that, especially with the lack of people that are out even at this time of day, you're very easy to track them. And it appears, because you're hanging a bit further back, nobody seems to notice either of you.
Okay.
As you're going across town, you cross back past the courthouse, cross the river, and actually find yourselves in 5 Points area, which, compared to the rest of Albuquerque, this is a rough area. A lot of the homes look very ramshackle, thrown together. They're much closer together than a lot of the other buildings in the rest of town. The entire place looks like a fire hazard, that if a fire happened here, the entire place would go up.
All right, so I'm hearing keep Moz out.
Yeah, it looks pretty dangerous. You go past a sign that reads Simon's Shinies and Wares and make your way deeper, continuing to follow these until the tracks end at a slightly nicer building in that it looks like it has all four walls nicely constructed. A little bit older, a little bit run down, but the sign, after you take a minute to read it, reads, "The Sacred Flame Home for the Needy." Moz and Bonesaw, you approach the Undertaker's house just outside of the cemetery.
Bones, I hear this lady doesn't take kindly to you sort of undead folk. You got anything in that magic bag of yours that can make you look less you?
I actually thought I might come bearing gifts. Bonesaw has been mixing an elixir all this while and says Myra said she might be cursed. And I thought, what's better to get someone with a curse than a potion for breaking curses? So...
I like where your head's at, but don't lead with that. Typically, if you have someone knocking on your door, having them offer you some strange concoction is a mighty big red flag.
Yeah, unfortunately, vis-a-vis the disguise, I sort of used my one... the way my potions work, I've never explained this to you. I prepare most of them in the morning, but I keep some of my magical reserve on hand in case a situation comes up. But unfortunately, I used the magical reserve for keeping Myra warm earlier, so I have none left to change my appearance. But I'm sure we'll make do.
Sorry.
No, it was important.
I think you're thinking there's a little limited. You ever consider a little bit of nose candy? And Moz will pull out Dust of Illusions from his bag and very subtly hand it off to Bonesaw, which I believe is just, it lets you do the spell Disguise Self.
Ooh.
None of your fancy potions and drinking and whatnot.
Alright, so I hear you, and if you really think it's necessary, I will, but the thing with these sorts of potions is they don't change your clothes. Oh wait, they do change your clothes. He's looking at the fine print on the bottle. Oh, this might be different from mine. I'll have to adjust that. Alright, let's go.
Okay.
Okay, here's a question for you. It says it'll change your clothing to look different, but Bonesaw doesn't want to take off his mask if at all possible. So should he just disguise it as a different mask? Or can he make it look like a face?
I suggest a clown. Clowns are friendly.
What if it would just look like an excessive amount of makeup?
Yeah,
Very thick makeup.
Yeah, very
Like an
thick
itch
makeup.
Okay. Bonesaw will sprinkle the dust over himself, and as he does, very little changes about his height, though his clothing becomes better fitted on him. And as it passes over his face, the mask sort of transmutes into a thick, cakey layer of makeup. But you can see underneath it, it looks like what you briefly saw, that portrait of Templeton Throckmorton before Jesse put a hole through the center of the face. Living.
Okay. Interesting.
He's a half-orc with green skin, piercing yellow eyes, and dainty little tusks. And there's no, nose socket, which you've seen when Bonesaw has taken off the mask in the past. And there's no, torn-up skin around his mouth. And he's got all his hair.
Interesting. Huh. I think Moz will take a good long look and go, huh. I expected you to be a bit uglier.
Well, it's not really my face. So it's not like it matters.
That's your right. Alright, let's go talk to this lady.
Alright.
You can see in the distance the arch over the cemetery. Up here on Boot Hill, there's a smattering of houses. It appears to be not necessarily poor, just kind of old and run down. Not a well-kept-up area of town. And this house in particular is set off away from even the other houses. As you approach, you get an eerie fucking feeling. You look up, sitting on all around the house, you see crows just sitting and watching. As you get closer, you see most of the snow is not actually sticking around the house. The ground seems to be a bit warmer.
Ooh.
Above the doorframe, you see 2 railroad spikes that have been inlaid in a cross. And what was probably at one point 7 horseshoes that were hammered in above the doorframe. At this point, all of them have fallen to the ground, save for one which is hanging upside down with the U facing downwards.
Well,
You see a smattering of coffins leaning up against the side of the house, a ladder, sets of shovels and picks and kind of earth-moving equipment, all very bright and shiny and well taken care of.
Bonesaw, looking over the tools leaning against the house, says, "Oh, that takes me back."
you ever get the creeping sensation that you're not welcome?
No, never.
Yeah, should have expected that.
How do you mean?
You wouldn't understand. I guess Moz is gonna approach the door.
As you do, make a reflex save for me.
What? Ring doorbell.
Both of us? Just Moz?
Just Moz.
Just
Okay.
Moz. What? Who else? Reflex.
Yes.
22.
As you're approaching, you trip slightly over one of the little steps. Just enough that as you steady yourself, you notice a rake that is leaning precariously, suddenly falls right in front of you, and you're pretty sure it would have landed right in your back had you tripped and fallen.
Well,
That's a pretty nasty curse.
yeah. Hate to have it 24/7. Let's hope that your potion can help her out.
Hello? Undertaker Leona? Are you home? Knock, knock.
Like to have a few words.
The door creaks open. Somebody clearly needs to oil their hinges. And it's just a...
Aw.
That seems welcoming. Let's go on. Come on, Mozzie. Bonesaw will swan in.
Moz is gonna give Bones a pained look and follow.
As soon as Moz steps inside, the door boom slams shut.
Don't worry. I'm sure the bark is worse than the bite.
The door bar falls and locks the door behind you.
Interesting.
That's a hell of a coincidence. God,
Undertaker?
I
Are you here?
I feel like I'm an NPC in a video game, like, must have been the wind. Like,
We should all split up and investigate, gang.
we are going to die. Oh.
You hear, coming from deeper inside, we, come in.
Oh, thank you. Just real quick, before we die, would you drink this?
There's a beat. This main room appears to be kind of a mortuary office. You see formaldehyde, you see an open casket that's been set up against one of the walls, various tools and carpets and blankets and all sorts of, appears to be even like a little autopsy table. And stepping around the corner into this main room, you see Leona Maxwell. She's dressed in the same black suit with dusty orange trim that she was in before, not wearing a top hat this time. Her pale scales are reflecting candlelight from a candle that she is carrying, her red eyes darting around. What do you want me to drink?
It is a remove curse elixir. I can't guarantee it will work, but it's worth a shot, right?
She gives a small, sad smile. If it would make you feel more comfortable, then. She takes it, pops the cork, downs it in a single drink. There's a beat, 2 beats. Nothing seems to happen. Does that satisfy you?
I mean, it's not really for me. It's more for you. I'm sorry if it doesn't work, but I gave it a good shot.
You would not be the first person to try that sort of thing on me. I appreciate the effort.
Oh, well, how long have you been this way?
All my life. Luck has always been bad for me. Always finding the bad penny. Tripping over black cats. Stepping under ladders. I haven't owned a mirror in many years, for fear of breaking it. I do my best.
That sounds incredibly lonely. I'm sorry.
Why would I be lonely? I make all of the friends that I need out in the cemetery.
Well, listen, bestie, I've been there, but, I would keep trying with the living. Also, don't give up. Some of them come around.
Leona just gives you a wide smile and says, I appreciate the effort. Frankly, the fact that you are not running away from me, it is nice. I hope you did not get hurt trying to come in.
Oh no, we're fine. We're fine, aren't we, Moz? Oh, sorry, I didn't introduce... I'm Bonesaw, and this is... Can I use your real name? Is that okay?
Moz will do just fine.
Alright, Moz. This is Moz.
I just want to note it before we get too far. Moz is prepping an action to kick up a bardic performance if shit hit this effect. Anyway.
She smiles and says, Bonesaw and Moz. You know, I have a bonesaw of my own. It's right over there.
Oh, me too!
It's when they don't find a corpse for a few days in the winter. They're a bit splayed out, and they don't always fit in the coffin.
Oh, those are the worst, aren't they?
Yes.
Bonesaw brushes some things aside, clears a little room at the table, and sits down and makes himself at home.
Moz will remain standing.
You know, my father was an undertaker. I don't do it so much these days, but, you know, I've got the tools. I just don't keep a lot of wood around. You know, it's sort of heavy. But I was wondering if I could buy some to make a gift.
Buy some wood. I don't really have any wood myself. I am just the undertaker.
Oh, you don't make the coffins?
No. I don't make the coffins. For that, you would have to speak with some... what is his name? Harrison Young in town. He makes the furniture. He makes all of these coffins. Quite an exquisite coffin maker, if you ask me.
All right, I'll hit him up later. Is it all right? Could I ask you a few questions? We're actually doing an investigation.
She looks a bit uncomfortable at this. You get the sense, like, this is probably the longest conversation she's had with anyone in a long time.
Not of you, dear. Just, you know, related.
I suppose, is this where I ask if you want a, she kind of waves her hands, drink of some kind? I don't have, I might have some Low John root. I don't have much company. Not much that speaks, anyway.
Drink would be just fine. Whiskey if you have it.
Oh, whiskey. I don't have whiskey. I have a bit of wine left over.
Long as it's alcoholic.
Okay, give me just a moment. And she disappears into the back room. You hear some shuffling, some glasses being set down, wine pouring, a shatter, a curse in Draconic.
You alright in there?
Oh, no.
I am fine. I am perfectly fine. These mad ghosts are being...
You know, we don't mind sharing the bottle. Why bother with glasses?
That would be fine if there was a bottle anymore.
Oh, you know what? I can provide drinks. Bonesaw will pull out a bottle of Applejack, I think is what he's got on hand.
God.
I don't mind sharing spit if you don't. After all, we don't believe in germs yet.
Believe in what now?
We will in 14 years.
Aren't you a doctor?
The perfect doctor for the time period.
Bonesaw went to Harvard, I'll let you know.
She brings a set of 3 metal cups that are pretty badly dinged up, but she sets them out, and 2 of them have wine in them. One is mostly full, one is halfway full, the third one is completely empty, and says, that would be nice, I would appreciate that. Here, for your time while you're here. And she hands both of you a small red bag made of silk.
Huh.
Oh, thank you.
Much obliged. May I ask what this is?
Good luck, John. It should help a little bit while you are in here.
Appreciate it. So, as we were saying, while we have some drinks, we'd like to ask you a couple questions. Do you happen to know anything about these recent murders and assaults in town, about the undead risings?
She swirls her cup a little bit and says, are you here on behalf of yourselves, one of the victims, or they... I don't believe there is a perfect translation into English. The lords of this town.
The sheriff. The law.
Well, then I will tell you the same thing that I told him. I am doing...
Oh, sorry. To clarify, we're not with the law. I was trying to provide the word. And to be completely honest with you, we are being paid by Odger Galloway to investigate. But as independent freelancer types, we sort of make our own rules, if you get what I'm saying.
Understood. Very well, I will tell you what I know, and unfortunately that is not much. The ground has not been disturbed, save for the 2 graves that I dug. One as an extra, because I could sense a chill in the air and I didn't want to have to dig one when the ground was frozen. One for that man who was hung yesterday.
Is he still buried?
Yes, I've been following the proper rituals. He will not be rising.
Alright. So, you don't know of any missing bodies?
No, there have been no missing bodies. I regularly check the cemetery.
Alright. What do you know? From what we heard, the zombies have been disintegrating afterwards, which is not normal. Do you have any hypotheses related to that?
God damn it.
What?
Wait, you're saying that they are... What do you mean when you say they're dissolving?
Decomposing. We haven't seen it ourselves, but it seems that afterwards the bodies just sort of crumble.
What is left over after they crumble?
I believe the sheriff said, like, a rotted mess.
Mad. Well, I have good news and I have bad news for you.
The good news first, please.
The good news is that it's more good news for me. It's definitely not anything that I have done. I have not been having an issue. The bad news is that there is somebody in town who is not only has knowledge of how to create zombies, but knows how to dispose of them. Would have to have extreme knowledge of necromancy. Honestly, this even goes beyond a bit of necromancy. This would be somebody who knows how to destroy undead incredibly well. It's like, if it is dissolving the body, it is not just the creation, but it is destruction. It would be positive energies. It would be not even something that the Reaper would do. That is almost divine holy magic. It's the kind that would be from the fountain. That would be the same, those kinds of energies.
Ouch. Alright, good to know. You said there was one other person who knew this sort of magic.
I mean, there are several in town, but not many.
Who are they?
She considers for a second and says, "It's the only person that I know. If anything, it sounds like somebody is taking control of these people, which sounds very similar to what I have heard of the Coffinmaker in town. I don't know if you have heard of that man."
Just by name, but any clarity you could bring to the issue would be very helpful.
She kind of leans in and says, "Frankly, I have no love lost for whoever he is. I have more often than not found bodies up here that have been burglarized for parts."
Oh, that's terrible.
He specializes in a type of necromancy known as necrograft.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
How do you know the Coffinmaker's a he?
I suppose I don't. I've only ever heard of him referred to as a he by others, though. And I often see his handiwork on some of the richer to-dos in town. Those who can afford the services get a bit of ghoul tongue or a ghoul gut, replace a limb with a stronger undead limb.
The Coffinmaker must have connections. Customers, sellers. What do you know? We need names.
If I knew that, I would be walking up to that man and showing him just how unlucky I can be.
Oh, I like your spunk.
You'd be the only one in town who does. I can't get a drink in this town for all of the gold in the Sierra Nevadas.
That's too bad. Maybe you should try a new town. If you ever want to come by Petition, that's where my friends and I are from. Sort of. It's our home base recently.
Petition. Perhaps I will look into that. Would not be the first time that I need to leave a town.
You said the Coffinmaker's services weren't cheap. Do you have anyone in mind who can afford their services and might have a need to do so?
I would say any of the bankers in town may have something.
Suppose that's worth following.
I know some of the students at the Jesuit college have some of the richer ones try to get implants to make themselves smarter, what have you.
Now, isn't that interesting? 2 of the locations that were attacked were at the Jesuit college and at the bank, I believe, the Blue Scale Bank.
Maybe it was a deal gone sour. Someone couldn't pay or slighted the Coffinmaker. Think we might be onto something here, Bones.
That's a very good lead.
If you do find out who this Coffinmaker is, would you give them this for me? And she reaches kind of into one of her boxes that you see has symbols carved on the top of it, picks it up and hands it to you. It's a small poppet.
Oh, I love this. You make dolls.
Yes, dolls. That is what it is. Little friends for those who I like and those I don't like.
Is this one of the like or don't like ones?
Oh, you're giving it to the Coffinmaker. Oh, I don't like.
I probably don't like, yeah. Oh, all right.
Can Moz do a insight check or arcana on the doll? Like, it's very clearly not a regular present.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
I'm putting don't like poppet for Coffinmaker in my inventory.
With a 15, you can tell that this is just a small poppet, about 1 foot tall, that has just all of the internal anatomy of it stitched into it in fabric. Quite extensive detail.
Wow.
And you get a faint necromancy aura off of this. You're pretty sure that this is going to be a haunted doll.
You know, you could totally sell these. Look at that detail. The people would snap these up. Seriously, Leona. Your talents are misplaced.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Wouldn't touch that with your bare skin, Bonesaw. You seem to have a natural gift for finding peculiar objects.
Well, I'll keep it for the Coffinmaker. Sorry.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Is there anything else that you needed?
Think this visit has been very enlightening. Bonesaw, you got any further questions for the mistress?
I don't believe so, but it was such a pleasure to meet you, Leona, and you should totally visit us anytime you like.
Thank you. I might take you up on that.
And go ahead and keep the rest of the bottle.
You have my thanks, and you are always welcome in mine home.
Appreciate it.
Just make sure you knock first, and don't bring anything too unlucky, or things that you want to keep intact. You never know what's going to break in here.
Oh, incidentally, do you hate undead folk, or...
No, why would I hate undead folk?
Oh, I didn't think so. All right. Bonesaw starts wiping off the dust and revealing his mask. Like, this is what I normally look like. We just weren't sure.
Ah.
Anyway.
I understand. Many mistake my job of preventing undead from rising with being a hater of the undead. No. I simply... She kind of clacks her fingers together. I found that the Reaper wants me to ensure that those who want to remain at rest stay at rest, and those who need to remain at rest stay at rest. It would not be very good to have folks like that Leslie or Saul rising from the grave as revenants. No?
You know, that's an excellent point. And on that note, heard anything about revenants lately?
No, I have not. And she walks over to the wall and opens a small secret panel that was behind a picture and pulls down a couple of amulets, rubs them. No, there's nothing seems to be a revenant anywhere nearby.
What you got there?
What What's the range on those things?
I would love one of those. Myra says from across town.
What's the range on those things, and are they for sale?
They are not for sale. They are incredibly rare.
Oh.
And my grandmother from New Orleans made them for me.
Oh, that's so sweet.
The range is from here, and she rubs it. All of them combined, I can probably detect through almost up to the 5 points area. Most of the town.
Ooh.
It's quite impressive.
All right.
If you don't mind, I'd like to get a closer look. You see, I'm a professional interest. If I get to know the inner workings, I might be able to replicate such a device if I find the right materials. Mind if I see that for just a second?
Is what are they called?
She considers for a second. Make a diplomacy check for me.
10.
10.
She says, I apologize, but they are very rare and difficult. I cannot be handing them out. If you wish to look it up, they are known as chercheurs de mortis vivants.
All right, we'll look into that. Incidentally, should you be walking near the Arroyo area, there's a burned-down house on the very edge of town that might be just out of your range that we suspect may have birthed a Revenant.
That is odd. I will go take a look.
All right, if you want to let us know what you find, we're staying at the Flowing Waters Hotel and Restaurant.
Oh, I'm not allowed in there.
Oh.
You could send a message.
There aren't many messengers who come out this way, but I will see what I can do.
We can also check back with you later.
That sounds like it would be the best option.
All right.
Well, Bones, I think we might have overstayed our welcome. Best be checking on those leads that we heard about.
Yes, thank you so much, Leona, and have a lovely day.
Au revoir. And thank you for the kindness that you have shown me. I do not get that often in this town.
It's because they're all assholes.
I did not say that.
Bonesaw heads out. Oh, well, I did.
We're gonna bounce over to Jasper and Myra, standing just outside of the Sacred Flame Home for the Needy, in the middle of 5 points. The place itself seems old, but well-maintained, well-loved. It's in better shape than a lot of the other houses around.
All right, I'm going to pull back a little bit so that Myra and I can talk out of eyeshot of the building.
Yeah, Myra climbs down off the roof.
All right, this seems like a long walk to take a homeless feller, especially after you've already given him a cup of hot soup.
I suppose so. It is a homeless shelter, but it does make an odd point, why they would be taken all the way across town. I guess we could ask, do you think we should approach this stealthily and try to sneak in a look through a window, or do you think we should pretend to be, generous donators looking to help out the needy?
I think I'd rather take a sneak peek around, seeing as I've got this wonderful elixir that Bonesaw has lent unto me. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to try and sneak in there.
Okay.
I want you to hang on to this little frozen feller here.
Okay, she picks up Goiter.
That's the bravest thing I've ever seen you do. I'm going to reconnoiter, see if I can find a window I can jimmy or a place to climb up and get in. But I want you to be ready. If you hear a gunshot fire or me a hollering, that's your cue to press the Goiter button.
Okay, I can do that.
Goiter just, moves over your entire arm, because you are much warmer than the outside with your inter elements. So he's just, spreading over your entire arm, trying to soak in the heat.
She kind of grimaces a little bit, but she embraces him and is like, I know, buddy, I know, it's cold. It's super cold. All right. We'll wait out here for you.
Gives a feller the willies. All right. I cannot imagine that the security is going to be too high on this place unless they are indeed up to nefarious no-goodniks. He said that this potion was going to last longer, but didn't quite say how long. So I'm going to down it just as I approach the building and hope that it's going to last me like 10 minutes and not
10
2
seconds.
full rounds.
I think he's used it with you before, such that you would know that it lasts a minute per level, 10 minutes.
I'm going to set my stopwatch for 10 minutes. Actually, I am not going to drink the potion until I have found a way in. I'm going to rely on my own natural stealthitude.
Okay.
I'm also taking a look at the snow around the area to look for anything that might seem suspicious. Like a whole bunch of tracks leading from the back door to a little ditch or something.
A pile of bodies just hanging out in the back.
Yeah. Well, you don't see anything as you sit down on the corpses that are stacked in the back of the building, but...
As you look around, you don't see anything necessarily suspicious. As you approach, you find a couple of windows that seem like they are fairly accessible from the ground floor. It's a large ranch-style house, so there's not really a second floor or anything.
Alrighty, well, he's still doing full stealthing. He's walking right up next to the edge of the building under the eaves so that he's not tracking snow. When he's testing a window, he's up against the wall, but just kind of sticking a thumb that might come into field of view to see if he can push up on a mullion. And as soon as he finds a place to go in, he's going to drink that potion. See if I can figure out what's going on with this place.
Okay. Give me a 1d6 roll.
4.
With a 4, you jimmy open the lock on the window. It is incredibly easy. Like, it probably wasn't even fully locked. It's purely for keeping it closed. You find yourself in what appears to be an empty bunk room. Nobody's inside it. The lights are off. Nobody's around. You hear some muffled voices coming from outside the main door.
Okay. Quick sniff of the air. Any unusual odors?
Give me a perception check.
21.
Little bit of must, little bit of tilled earth, which is a bit odd. Kinda sour soup. It smells like it's maybe 1 or 2 days out from going fully bad. In here, you definitely get the scent of stale body odor, people who have been staying here for a long time without really taking baths. You also smell some incense burning that when you sniff it, it definitely kind of tickles your nose and it doesn't feel great to smell.
That is not typical for incense, but tilled earth. That tells me one of 2 things. Either somebody's digging in the basement, or somebody's got a fresh box of dirt somewhere, and I don't know which one is worse. I am going to start trying to work my way through the house looking for a cellar entrance.
Okay. Give me a stealth check and another perception or survival. Let me roll a quick check.
I think Myra's rolling Goiter around in the snow like a snowball.
I'd like to say you're making snow angels, but snow something.
You know how they say not to eat yellow snow?
Oh, don't eat the pinkish green snow.
You begin making your way through this house, and it's very clear that this is meant as like kind of a halfway house, place for people to stay and eat. You pass a decently sized kitchen where you see a couple of folk, not in brown robes, but in white robes, making some stew. You find a couple more dormitories. You pass by what appears to be the main area, a decently sized room with a soup kitchen line, a warm and cozy fire, benches, even what appears to be some reading materials, small books lining the shelves. In addition, you see a man standing facing away from you, talking to a crowd of folks. Very unique looking person. He appears to have almost like this bronze skin with a metallic sheen. His hair is this bright red, glittering metal-like color. It almost looks like he has a bit of a halo around his head. He speaks, talking to the crowd. You all are welcome in this home of respite. We accept all comers who are down on their luck and need just a simple helping hand. And it's about this time the front door opens up, and you see this, Myra. Another of those brown-robed people leading a young homeless woman carrying a baby is led inside. And he says, welcome, sister. You are more than welcome to stay for as long as you need. We simply ask that you help give back wherever you can. If you are able to cook, to sew, anything you need. And he turns around and you see his eyes for just a brief second, and they are pure gold irises. Just this piercing gold. And he has a short beard, close shaven, with spots of freckles across his face, beautiful white robes, carrying a medallion in his hand. And he says, you are welcome to find any place nearby. Simply pick a room and investigate and sit.
Does this look that this person has, is this familiar in any way? Is this something I have encountered or heard of before? Or does this appear to be a unique individual with no context that Jasper would have?
You know what? With the fact that he specifically was a teacher, I don't think you even need to roll for this to know that he is most likely an Aasimar.
Okay.
Celestial born, and definitely has a bit of that glowing energy about him. He starts to transition into speaking Spanish, giving much the same speech that he just did. If you continue to look through the house, you're welcome to.
Basically, I'm looking for a cellar entrance. I want to find the source of the smell of fresh tilled earth.
Okay.
And if I can use that as a guide, if I, for instance, smell it stronger in one direction than another, I will instead head for that.
Okay. Towards the back of the house, in a small storeroom, you find underneath a fairly large box a small trapdoor with a heavy padlock on it.
Ooh. Wow. Not sure. I do not have lock picking. Alright, so this was a back room. Is there a back door near this back room?
Yes, there is.
I'm just going to make sure that it is unlocked for easy re-access. And I'm going to spend my remaining time examining this lock, the hinges, the trapdoor, just trying to get an idea of what the level of obstacle is, because I have this feeling that Bonesaw and Moz have the particular criminal skills that we would need in a situation like this.
Okay.
And with the smell of fresh tilled earth, do I detect any sense of the odor of death? Rotted meat or stale bodies?
Give me another perception check now that you're right on top of it.
25.
You do not detect any sort of death, decay, any of that. And in fact, besides the fresh tilled earth, it almost smells too clean. Like, it smells antiseptic, like it has been scrubbed. In addition, with a 25, you hear the footsteps coming up behind you before somebody turns the corner.
All right. Is there only one entrance or exit out of this room?
There's two. There's the back door and the door that the person is coming towards. There is a window as well.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to quickly open the window and then stand by the back door. And if for some reason I need to make a quick exit, like I feel, okay, we're just getting too close to the time up here. As soon as somebody says, what the heck is this window doing open, and goes to close it, I'll go through the back door as if they had somehow opened the door by closing the window.
You see a young man in these same white robes, a white hood pulled up, brilliant blue eyes. Step inside, look around for a second. I thought I smelled. He looks over at the window, walks over, and is going to close it.
Okay. I have a feeling that he is not going to spend any more time in this room. I'm going to risk it. If necessary, I'm going to crouch down behind something in case my invisibility goes off. But I am not going to leave the room.
Okay. He looks around one more time, and then he steps over to the box, taps on it 3 times, gives a nod, and then returns to the front.
Alrighty. Can I determine why he tapped on it 3 times? Did anything happen? Anything that could have been perceived? Like he tapped on it 3 times and heard a sound?
Give me an Arcana check.
I'm +1, guys, so just get ready for some serious. 7.
7? No clue.
No clue.
Maybe it was a secret code or something.
Yeah, Jasper's thought was, okay, he's signaling to somebody down there. But, okay. I've learned about all I can learn without really causing a ruckus. So as soon as he leaves the room, I'm out through that back door, making sure that I leave the back door and that window unlocked. And make my way back over to Myra.
She doesn't see Jasper approach and is making weird noises at Goiter and goes, "Who's a good no Goiter? She does not notice Jasper approach.
Jasper shudders into visibility. Well,
how'd you get back?
I don't know if that's the most innocent place in the world or if that's the most sinister place in the world because it looks so innocent. All right, here's what's going on. And I described pretty much step by step what I heard, what I smelled, the speech that was given, the trap door, the knocking. I described the lock and stuff like that. The fact that there was an antiseptic smell to it. Can you make anything of all that?
Just that an antiseptic smell generally is not a good sign. Usually you're trying to hide something in particular.
Yeah.
And if, bad smells are, just bad smells, but if you're trying to hide the smell of blood or death and decay, that's something else entirely. I don't have a great feeling.
I think that you're spot on there. Now, do you have any skills at opening locks nice and quiet like?
Quiet like no, but I can absolutely use the good old-fashioned method, and she kind of twirls her rifle a little bit.
Yeah, I thought about that too, but that would send signals we necessarily do not want to send out. I think it's best that we head back and reconnoiter with our friends who have who might have some skills in that area. Either Bonesaw's got some elixir that can dissolve metal, or Moz can. Well, I'm certain that Moz and Lox have a certain affinity.
Absolutely. Yeah, they'll definitely be able to help us better than we can.
Yeah, because shooting it off was the only thing I could think of too, and I really don't know why that feller knocked, but he knocked and just kind of nodded like it was something he expected to happen, but nothing happened.
All right, well, let's go find our buddies.
All right then.
She takes Goiter and she yeets Goiter like a football and says, "Go get him." We'll be right behind you.
He lands in the snow and then just immediately scurries back over to you, Myra, and up your arm.
Oh, right. It's cold. My bad. Sorry.
I just had this vision of Goiter starting to roll, and Bonesaw and Moz being interrupted by some sort of gigantic snowball. Would have been a mite humorous, I would think, but no, I think we're trudging along the old-fashioned way.
You all reconvene. I assume you're meeting back up at the Flowing Waters.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that'd be the safest thing.
Yeah.
Or the easiest.
We don't know where Cameron is in Albuquerque, right? We need to figure that out.
Correct.
But we know that the neighbors are at Dr. Savalievna's Body Works.
Yep. You return to the hotel, meet up. Moz, give me a perception check.
Okay. Ooh. 23.
You see, stabbed in the snow, just outside of the flowing waters, is a white glove with a dagger through it. You know that this is a sign from your sister, Kotiha, when she has completed a job at a place.
Ooh.
Shit.
And moreover, when you step inside, you see Jordan Yates watching you.
Can I do a check on Jordan Yates to determine what he's thinking?
Yeah, go for it. Give me a sense motive or a perception check.
Nah.
That's a nat one.
You sure I can't carry over my perception from earlier?
Yeah, you're not sure what's going on. He's just giving you the stink eye.
Yeah, probably doesn't like rat folk too much. I'll keep that information to myself, but I guess we'll go up to the room. Moz will keep his eyes open for anything that's out of place. I don't think he left anything behind in the hotel, but...
Yeah. I think the one thing you notice, like you're trying to get a sense of what's going on with Jordan Yates, but all you see is that older gentleman in the pith helmet from the other night when you first arrived has his foot up on one of the chairs across from Virginia Reeves and is saying, "Oh, and there I was in Africa hunting a jaguar, and it was the most fearsome prey that I have ever faced up until that time." And Virginia just looks so fucking bored about this. Like, she does not give one fuck about this guy.
Oh, the P-O-S-H posh.
I'll stop at home.
You all go upstairs.
Well, Leona is actually a delight. Just sort of sad and lonely and friendless. But she doesn't hate undead people.
Then I'll have to change my opinions on that, then. I suppose I might have got off on the wrong foot there, and maybe she just has a way of keeping people at a distance.
Yeah.
You know, when you don't get to meet a lot of people and they're unfriendly to you, sometimes it's hard to know the right thing to say.
Yeah, I'll have to take your word for it. It's never happened to me. And in case it didn't come across in the recording, there was a wink followed by that. Or that was followed by a wink.
It was a very, very audible wink.
Oh, Mr. Popular over here.
I am the life of every party and the joy of every room. But, so did she know anything of any use?
Oh, quite a bit. And Bonesaw will catch them up on everything we learned, including her suspects and all the information about the Coffinmaker, and mention the amulets and what they were called and how they worked.
Myra looks down at her little ranger star. Is what she have one of those? Or is that amulet something different altogether? Because it made kind of a bit of a bird noise when they were investigating.
From what you can tell, based on just the rough description, it sounds very similar to what you have for the Revenant star, though you get a sense that in addition to the normal stuff that your Revenant star can do, it also has the ability to, within a certain radius, just kind of ping towards a Revenant. And like, oh, there's a Revenant within this area.
She kind of strokes her chin a little bit and goes, maybe I need to make my way to New Orleans, see if I can get me one of those.
That sounds like a fun trip.
Oh, absolutely. All kinds of spooky stuff goes down in New Orleans.
So, what did y'all learn on your adventures?
Well, either that place is doing good work for the homeless of the city, or they're a front for something sinister. They seem almost too good to be true. Place seems to be run by, or at least preached over by an Aasimar, real welcoming type of fella, and said that the people staying there had the full run of the place, which seemed a mite unusual, but The place that I want to investigate is someplace they wouldn't have had access to because it was locked behind a great big old padlock.
Ooh.
I will describe the smells that were smelled, the position of the trapdoor, the padlock, and the knocking action performed by the acolyte who came back there to investigate a smell that he thought he smelled. Now, he might have smelled me. I mean, it's cold out, so I probably ain't got as much of a zombie odor as usual. And I do try to disguise it to some degree, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I smelled fresh-tilled earth. I smelled an antiseptic smell coming from that basement. And Myra rightly pointed out that usually a smell of antiseptic that strong that you could detect it through that much oak, it indicates that somebody's trying to hide a different odor. I think that basement might do with some investigation.
I'm hoping at the very least that if we do find something that is, something they want to hide, that it's like, I don't know, a bunch of food that they might have lifted off of a market or something like that. That's what I'm hoping. Other than that, I don't see, unless people from the homeless shelter themselves are actually going missing. Did you count how many people were in there? Or I guess just round about a head count?
Well, I didn't do an actual count, but I must have a general idea.
Yeah, I would say you would guess that there was probably 14 people that you could see.
By 14 people, that's the staff or the staff and guests or the guests?
14 guests. I don't think you saw enough of the staff to know. You think you saw maybe 6 or 7.
Yeah, I saw maybe a couple of cooks, the Aasimar fella, and then maybe the fellow who knocked on the crate, and maybe 2 or 3 others.
Well, for all of the sheriff's fuss, Leona said she'd only dug 2 graves recently. I don't really think we need to examine... Would we have had a chance to, glance over the graveyard while we were there, because we were close?
Yeah, we can run back to that a little bit, let y'all take a look. What all graves are you going to be looking for?
Just like to confirm that it was 2 graves as opposed to a bunch of earth. Because the sheriff was like, there's so much earth that was turned and clearly bodies popping up left and right, but...
Yeah, as you look around, you see 1 open grave and 1... give me a perception check, actually.
Okay. 16.
13, you're not going to get anything different. You see just the open grave, Leslie Black Eye. You see his grave with freshly tilled earth. You see a couple of people nearby. It seems that Leona's has no interest in, doing anything more than, next person, next gravesite. Next person, next gravesite. There's no organization to it. You get what you get and you don't throw a fit, because you're dead.
That should be her tagline.
Yeah.
I know she's got the great, I'm the last name you need to know, but you get what you get and you don't throw a fit because you're dead.
You see the marker for Enos Thomas, who was one of the people that was killed by the undead attacks. You do not see one for Pahana, who was the Ute representative to the Native Lands Alliance. Mm-hmm. You do see one recently tilled for Saul Laguna. You notice that the snow is not fully settled on Saul's gravesite. And in fact, it looks like there's almost no snow on it.
As snow falls, does it melt? Or is it this has just been moved?
It looks like it's melting as it hits the soil. But the soil itself does not look more freshly tilled than a couple of weeks ago.
Can we walk up and touch the soil? Does it feel warm?
Feels warm to the touch.
Oh.
That's, not natural.
Okay.
Did you say that the snow was also not sticking around the house of Leona?
Yes, that was true.
Zach, does Moz have any kind of detect magic ability?
Actually, yes, I do. I've never used that. I saw that earlier when I was looking at it, I didn't know that. Yeah, I got the cantrip. I suppose I'll just pop that right in the chat and...
How long are you going to hold it?
All 3 rounds.
Yeah.
I don't even know how this shit works. The Pathfinder's weird.
Basically, the first round, I think, is the presence or absence of magical auras. The second round is the number of auras and the power of the most potent aura. And third round is the strength and location of each aura. And then after that, you can make a knowledge arcana skill check to figure out the school of magic involved.
Okay.
Oh. Yeah, you detect a strong conjuration aura.
Interesting.
Can we look around? Are there any footprints that are not our own? Like, has someone been walking near here recently?
Give me a survival check.
5.
Oof. Yeah, a 5. There's just nothing that you're seeing.
Where's Jasper
Okay.
when you need him?
Sneaking around in a halfway house.
I want to try something, but it could mess up the site. Do you think I should wait until we can get Jasper out here to look at it?
Last time you tried something, I had to stop a mob from chasing your skin suit down the city.
Listen, I try things all the time that don't incite mobs.
Many times!
That was like 1 out of 5.
It's not a great track record.
The last time I tried something, we made really cool friends with the badass Undertaker. The time before that, I got shot in the chest. So I feel like it's like every other time.
What's your
you know.
idea before you just pop it out?
I have bombs that can dispel magic, and I'm wondering if I pop one on the grave, if it will take away the conjuration magic and create some sort of effect.
We need to trace this source. We were not interested. Someone's tampered with this site. We need to know who. Might be good as a failsafe. Maybe we could rig this site as like a trap or something. If maybe the body's still in there, and if it pulls itself out, maybe we can blow it to the sky high. But if you start tampering with the site, we might lose the only lead we've got.
Alright, let's hold off for now. Try to get Jasper over here, see what he can see. We could always dig up and see if the body's in there after Jasper's looked, and try various things, but let's save it for him.
That's totally unsuspicious. So that's what you discovered, eh?
Yeah.
Flashback.
Sounds like we might have chosen opposite tasks
should
and
have
done a little better there.
Well, we didn't know. And I wanted to talk to Leona anyway.
All right, tell you what. Why don't we head over to your Boot Hill site first while there's still light, and then afterwards we'll mosey on over down to 5 Points, and either you or Moz can see what can be done about that padlock and trap door.
I'm not the most nimble lockpick, but I've got the basics. Unless Moz has got...
These fingers were meant for fiddle playing, not for messing with locks and the likes.
Well, I'll give it a shot.
Well, I don't think I have ever tried it myself, but as long as we got some way to do it kind of sneaky-like. You ain't got no reagents in your pouch there what'll melt metal or quietly burn through wood?
Well, I've got a fruity cord, but that's not exactly a quiet solution.
That doesn't sound very quiet at all.
Get the job done, though, guarantee that.
I feel like I've walked into Disney's and I got some C5. I got some dynamite that I could use.
Paper clips, big ones.
We'll get that open in no time. It's gonna be great. Oh, you want to do it quiet? Well, you won't be hearing much after it all goes off. It'll just be like a light ringing into the ears. All right.
Okay.
I think we're headed over to Boot Hill.
Yeah,
Okay.
check out the graves.
With all this traveling throughout the day, it's starting to get to be late afternoon by the time you guys get there.
Okay.
All right. And this is winter, so we don't have much light left.
You end up at the cemetery. As you pass by Leona's place, you see the 7th horseshoe has finally fallen to the ground.
Bodes well.
You go out to the cemetery. I assume you're going straight to Saul's grave.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, everybody stand back. Let me see. All right, first of all, that's Bonesaw there. That's Moz. I'm going to use my survival check-in to see what I can find out.
Can I also see if maybe the magical aura is just something Leona placed as like a thing to prevent him from rising as a revenant? Like just to make sure that this wasn't something that's routine practice of an undertaker.
She did say she did all the rituals.
Yeah, you have your Revenant star out, correct?
Yeah.
Your badge is not vibrating.
Is the magic something like, oh yeah, Leona cast that, or is it something else entirely?
It seems like it's something else entirely.
Okay.
And it seems concerning because it doesn't seem to match with any sort of what you would expect to see on a grave.
Okay. She's gonna look at all the other graves while Jasper's taking a look at that one.
Yeah, you do not detect any sort of revenants in this area with your magic. Jasper, go ahead and give me a survival check.
31, and if it's to track, then that is 36.
Beautiful.
What you can see is... God, that's such a good roll. Even underneath the freshly fallen snow, you see Leona's talon prints in the dirt as she was dragging the coffin in, lowering it down. And that's it. You don't detect any other disturbances to the ground.
All right, I am 99.99% certain that there is nothing untoward going on here. I can see where the Undertaker lady did her job, lowered this thing down, but there ain't no disturbance, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that wouldn't happen in any other burial. Myra, you might have the right of it. This just might be something that the residual magic that is used to keep unquiet dead from rising.
If that were the case, why isn't it on any of the other graves? What's so special about this one?
Well, usually you don't. You either come back quick or you don't come back at all.
It's something doesn't feel right though. This does seem different.
No, I'm not the magical expert here, so
I don't know.
Well, now he burned to death. We determined that was a natural fire, though, right?
The one who was tied to the bed and doused in alcohol?
Yeah, so...
Right, but I mean, that was... When I say a natural fire, I mean not a supernatural fire.
Oh, all right. I was like...
Deliberate fire!
I'm pretty sure foul play was involved.
No, just a random fire, like what happens.
Died of natural causes.
Murder's a natural cause.
Just because there weren't any tracks of anyone coming up to it doesn't mean no one cast a spell from afar, or that there isn't something funky going on with the body down in there.
Right,
I think we should dig it up.
For once, I agree with Bones.
I want to see what's going on down there.
I'm sorry, what are you trying to do to my
Oh, hi.
Hi, Leona.
Oh, hi.
Right behind you, Leona has appeared, shovel in hand.
Oh, perfect. I was just about to ask if we could borrow that.
We're mighty confused about this here grave. There seems to be some magic on it. Was that you putting some conjuration magic on here?
She cocks her head and frowns. That was not me. Curious.
Well, curiosity killed the cat, and seems like you got the one tool we need in this situation to get some answers finally.
You know that defiling a corpse, digging up a corpse, grave robbing, is considered a crime in this city.
What are you, a cop?
Oh, we weren't going to take anything.
I think we can all be witnesses to each other that there's no theft involved.
Plus, is it really a crime if you're a professional?
We can put it back.
She smiles and tosses you all the shovel.
Oh, thank you.
Put it back the way that you expect that you found it.
Will do. Oh, did you happen to make your way up to Arroyo?
That was like 2 hours ago. No, I did not.
All right, just checking.
I have a job that I do in this.
No, I didn't mean to undermine your profession.
If you were curious, this guy right here that we're about to dig up, his murder is tied to the possible Revenant up in Arroyo.
Ah, it becomes a bit clearer now. You are a ranger, no?
Nope. Just
Hiding your star.
she kind of sheepishly waves the star around and goes, kind of, yeah. It's funny, the sheriff doesn't seem to, believe in us, or that we exist, or that Revenant exists for that matter, which I think is pretty strange.
The sheriff could not find his own horn if it was not attached to his head.
Boy, ain't that the truth.
Amen to that.
And I believe that we both have seen more than enough in our lives to show that there is more than meets the eye. You best get digging. The ground is going to be a bit chilly tonight.
Right. I'm going to hand my shovel to Bonesaw and say, you've got 2 hands, I've got 2 eyes. You use your hands here. I'm going to go to the entrance of the graveyard and use my 2 eyes and keep a lookout.
Sounds great.
So is Bonesaw holding 2 shovels now?
I suppose so.
I think she only had 1 shovel.
Yeah, she only has 1 shovel.
Oh, I thought she handed a shovel. It sounded like she handed a shovel to each of us. Oh, yeah, I traveled with a brace something on the back, just in case I need to dual wield.
There we are, Bones. I can dig twice as fast.
John Henry.
Bonesaw will go ahead and drink his elixir of enlarged person so that he is 14 feet high and can dig with all the extra muscles that entails. I would have loved to have this when I was a child. Makes half the work. Seriously, life hack. Or death hack,
I'm going to go to the entrance of the graveyard, light up a cigarette, and just kind of lean against a post, keep an eye on the road.
Okay, nobody seems to be coming down the way, so you seem to be in good shape there. You dig down to the coffin, and when you get there, it smells of burnt wood and barbecue, and there's no smell of rot. You open up the coffin?
Absolutely. Lever that shovel under, crack it open.
Myra's gonna just point her rifle at the coffin just in case if something spooky decides to jump up at us.
Nothing coming up the road. Everything looks fine.
The coffin cracks open. There is no body inside.
Oh, shit.
I didn't steal it, you all saw!
Leona looks over. She's had a smug smile on her face this whole time, but as soon as she sees the empty coffin, she just immediately is like, Matt, where's the body? There's no... What the fuck?
Zutalor, I have missed one.
And as you look, it is a plain pine box. But the entire interior of it is burned. As if there was a fire inside of it. And it smells fresh, like it was recently burned. And you see on the interior of the lid, carved into the wood, stained with blood, is the infernal word, rise again.
Oh.
Moz, you can specifically read it, even though you cannot read or speak infernal. You recognize it from your experience with,
Infernal beings.
Yes.
Okay.
You are able to read it quite easily, Bonesaw.
Well,
Rise again? That's not at all concerning. An infernal.
What was all the exclamation about from Miss Leon? Holy Jehoshaphat.
Now, Leona, you wouldn't happen to know anything about that symbol in there, would you?
No, that is... What does that even say? That is some sort of writing. I cannot make that out.
Yeah, that'd be infernal there. You're saying that You didn't see that while you were piecing together your coffin?
Do you think that I would have buried somebody in a coffin that had infernal writing on it?
We're not accusing you. We're just trying to figure out what happened.
What was that name of the coffin maker you were telling us about earlier? Was it John?
It's Harrison Young. Mr. Harrison Young, the furniture maker in town.
Not John, then. Harrison Young. Where might we find this Harrison Young?
Right downtown. You can't miss him.
I mean, we can talk to him, certainly, but Leona put the body in the coffin and she didn't see the writing when it went under. So I'm almost wondering if something happened to it after the fact.
I did detect a high amount of conjuration magic before we dug this place up. Can Moz do another detect magic specifically on the symbol there? Just try and learn more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, if you want to do a Knowledge Arcana check.
Okay.
Oh, no!
I've been rolling horrible for that. That's like the fourth or fifth one.
Natural
Dude.
That
one.
one.
That's so rough. I am sorry. God, unfortunately you have no clue. You get the same thing as before. It's an even stronger conjuration magic spell here.
Ooh, wait, I have an idea. Moz has a question he'd like to ask Kip.
Yes.
Ha!
Yeah, the violin. Yeah, what's up, boss?
You know what that writing means?
Now, don't panic. This is something that happens.
There's a lot of stuff that happens.
Trust me, a talking violin is the least of my worries right now. This is horrendous. Yeah, boss. Says, rise again.
What can you tell me about this? How did it get here? Who wrote it?
I mean, it's on the inside of a grave. Kinda guessing whoever was in the grave wrote it. I'm just kidding. I have no idea. I mean, it's probably... I mean, if I had to guess, it seems very similar to some of the devil conjuration spells that you sometimes see you mortals using up here to summon up the bigger bosses. But, I mean, that specific one, it would have to be tied to a lot of hate. Probably made a deal with somebody down below to come back, deal with somebody up top. Kind of like a worse than a Revenant that you would have to deal with. This would be like big bad mojo.
Charming. Well, does that satisfy y'all's curiosity?
Well, that's helpful.
Well, it definitely doesn't seem related to what we're doing.
I'd like to examine the symbol
Yeah, absolutely.
and determine from the burn patterns and the depth of the scratch and stuff, trying to determine if this was like scraped in by a sharp fingernail, or scraped into wood that had already been charred, or blood that had been applied and then burned outward from there. Trying to put a timeline onto how this thing got the way it is.
Gotcha. Probably the latter. Like, it was carved into it, blood was applied to it, and then the wood burned from there. What you can kind of guess, though, is it was not carved by a mortal hand. There was nothing ever alive or unalive in here.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is probably a result of whatever conjuration occurred.
Okay.
And based on what Kiep says, you're guessing that there was probably a deal with a devil made after death to return.
Is there any way we can track where this soul has ended up? Where have they gone?
Well, there weren't no footprints leading from the grave, I can tell you that. Especially none that was burning or on fire.
You don't gotta walk everywhere to get where you're going. I know that one better than most.
Well, there is that. Jasper looks up.
Let me see what I can find. This is... I don't even know how we're going to deal with this. If you can figure out who this Saul might be going after, that would likely give you...
If the Revenant killed Saul, then I don't know if this is a devil versus Revenant kind of thing, which sounds terrifying, but I don't know who's still alive at this point.
We should try to track down the wife, Rose.
Didn't she die?
No,
Oh.
How big is this symbol?
4 inches by 4 inches.
Oh, good, good. Might take 2 cigarette papers, but I'm going to do a rubbing of it.
And be careful where you leave that note.
Well, fortunately, by using 2 cigarette papers, they don't have to be joined up. Each one will have half a symbol. But just in case we need to show this to somebody with the knowledge that we might need.
That is incredibly brilliant, and it probably saved your life.
What?
All right.
Glad you clarified.
Excuse me?
I take full credit for this, knowing exactly what I have done. And I turn to the rest of you saying, that's how I saved your lives.
I feel like...
You all start making your way. Leona tells you that she's going to fill in the grave. She'll take care of this, do what she can do.
Oh, thanks, Leona.
That's might neighborly of you.
You all begin to make your way back as you're passing the open grave. Bonesaw, give me a reflex save.
Okay. 24.
Yeah, the DC was 25.
Oh no.
That was so close.
Hit me.
You all see Bonesaw trip on something, slip, trip, you're not sure, and fall into the open grave.
Quit messing around, Bones.
But you do not hear a thump. And in fact, you don't see Bonesaw. You just see a pit of darkness at the bottom.
What?
Oh my.
Very Bonesaw.
I'm gonna miss old Bonesaw. Yeah, old Boney as they used to call him. Alright, back to the hotel.
I'm not dead yet.
Hush up, you'll be stone cold dead in a moment. Oh my, what's happening?
Shit. Well, I suppose we have to, like, save Bonesaw or something.
Poor Bones.
I guess.
Alright. What does the state of the grave look like now? Is the grave just go down forever now into blackness?
Yeah, what do we see?
It looks like it goes about 6 feet down, and then the walls look perfectly normal, everything until 6 feet down, and then it just looks like this black patch with this swirling, almost purple and gray fog.
Ooh.
Oh no.
Is Goiter still up here?
Goiter is still up here, and he is freaking out. Like,
I look at Myra like Myra can speak Goiter. What's he jabbering on about? Goiter, where's Bonesaw?
What the hell happened, Goiter? Can you go after him?
Goiter unlatches from you and jumps into the grave.
Oh shit,
And
that might have been a bad idea.
You see him fall, and then when he gets 6 feet down, disappears.
If you killed my pet.
No.
Look what you done, Myra.
She calls out for Goiter. Goiter?
No answer.
Fuck.
Hell. I'm dropping a silver bullet in. See if silver does anything. Marking that off.
The silver bullet falls, disappears.
Hell. All right. I'm getting out Smokey, because Smokey's got the saddlebags that have my rope in it. Hold still, Smokey. I'm going to tie the rope to the saddle horn, drop the other end down.
As it hits, it starts pulling very quickly.
Oh, no. We try and pull back the rope. Pull back the rope.
Are you you're grabbing the rope?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull. I don't want my horse to go down the hole. I don't know if my horse can go down the hole. It's a human-sized grave.
The rope is moving very quickly.
Moz is gonna swipe the rope with his tail blade. Just cut it off.
The rope cuts and goes through.
This is looking like a one-way trip. Leona?
Leona's head pops up out of the grave. Yes?
Tell my family I love him. He's gonna hold on to his hat and dive bomb into the pit.
Leona, do you know what this is?
What is? Hold on, I'll hold on. You know, I thought I was bad luck, but you all seem to be messing with my graveyard.
Everybody's got a speciality.
Has this always been here?
She looks at you and says, yes, it has always been so, for as long as I've dug that hole.
Well, I don't know. I'm just asking. You know what? Fuck it. If she throws herself in it.
I'm done with this conversation.
All right. That just leaves you.
So, I'm standing up there alone now?
Well, Smokey's there, but yes.
He ditched you. I'm sorry, Jasper.
All right, Smokey. You led me out of one situation like this. I'm not asking you to follow.
Oh.
It's up to you, girl. But I'm going in after my friends. You can follow, or you can find some way of leading us out in the future. I'm depending on you, girl.
Aww.
She nuzzles him.
Petunia! And I leap into the pit.
Aww.
Bonesaw. As you sit up, after falling into this hole, you find yourself in an odd place. You look around and you're on a cobblestone street, but it doesn't seem like your typical cobblestone, dirty and filled with pockmarks. There's grass growing between the cobbles. You look around, the entire place, it feels similar to pictures and drawings you've seen of London. There's a gray mist hanging over, though it's fresh and clean. Not what you've heard of the tales of the smog that infects those European cities. The homes are these small brownstones lining the street, and you see wood lampposts going down the street into the distance, a gas flickering in them. But instead of the typical red flame of a burning gas, it burns blue. Above you, you see a sign. It takes you a minute to resolve because it looks like it almost shifts. What languages do you speak?
Common, Orc, Necral, Abyssal, Infernal, Mandarin, and Celestial.
In rapid succession, as you're looking at this, it keeps changing in front of your eyes to each of these different languages that you can read. And each one says the same thing. Welcome, yon traveler, to the witch market.
Oh no! No! Damn it! I forgot about this stupid
I figured that one out.
And then Goiter comes flying out from the doorway behind you, smacks into the back of your head.
Ouch, Goiter! Watch where you're going!
A silver bullet flies and lands on the ground next to you.
Ooh, don't mind if I do.
A coil of rope and just plows into you.
Alright, this is getting weird!
And then Moz, Myra,
Cannonball!
Jasper, and then boom! Smokey lands on top of you.
Ouch!
And that's where we're gonna end this session.
What a good horse!
Dust and Blood is a Rolling Path production featuring Corinne Hill as Myra Sting, Blake Alfson as our GM, Zach Parker as Moz Copernicus Pryor, Keith Curtis as Jasper Graves, and myself, Gail Parker as Bonesaw. Our theme song is Dust and Blood by Arne Parrott, and other music throughout this recording is provided by Kevin Macleod, Tabletop Audio, Dark Fantasy Studios, and the Desperados 3 original game soundtrack by Filippo Beck Peccoz. Transcripts, detailed sound credits, and more can be found on our website at dustandbloodpod.com. You can follow us on X and Facebook at DustAndBloodPod, or support us through our Patreon at Dust and Blood, where you can join our community Discord and get perks like our behind-the-scenes discussion show, The Roundup. We're so grateful for the support of our fans, people like Miss Blevins, Highland, Barbara, and Sleeve McDykel. Dust and Blood releases monthly on the 1st, and our next episode is coming at you on December 1st. Content warnings can be found in every episode description, and we hope you enjoy exploring this fantasy western with us. Thanks for listening.
My eyes shoot open to the early morning sun. I feel that aching, pounding, poking of a bullet in my lungs. Skinny ceiling, bones crunching. I feel that wretched ancient something drag me up to face that coward son of a gun. His face grows wide as he fumbles for his holster. I feel the lead pierce my shoulder, neck, and chest. I scream that I have died 100 times and lived 1,000 years, and I'll be damned if a boy like you's gonna be the best. Yes, I'll be damned if a boy like you's gonna be the best.
Of all the languages Bonesaw speaks, German's not one of them?
When we level up, it will be. I've been waiting.
Remind me again, what activated the witch coin? What was like the phrase, or what was like a question or a request?
A wish.
Expressing a desire. It was such a dangerous thing to have, and we all forgot about it.
Who expressed the wish? I missed it.
It did not happen in this episode. It happened a couple of episodes ago.
Okay.
Oh. Wonder why
Interesting.
it took so long to...
To be fair, it happened within 24 hours.
That covers 3 sessions.
Yeah.
That's not specific enough.
Oh, somebody looks like she knows something.
Someone might have wished for something on purpose.
Bonesaw.
Oh no.
I mean, Bonesaw didn't do it on purpose, but I might have.
Fuck. Well,
Sorry to interrupt all of everything else we were going on. It was
This might be something we need, though. 'Cause if we can find anything in the witch market, we might actually find something to help us.
at a price, we only just cleared the recent Fae business with your shit, alright? Like, I'm kind of sick of making deals with extraplanar entities, alright? Like, it's... I already got enough of that shit going around.
Jasper's gonna press the L key and call up the quest log. And, this thing's getting mighty full.
Yep.
Look at all them question marks.